Hi, everybody. Welcome to my parlor. Grab yourselves a mug of tea, coffee, or hot chocolate, or whatever you fancy, and let's get into it. Today I'm going to continue with part 3 of the Harkle children, but we are going to take a step away from moon bumps and birth certificates, etc. And in today's video, we are going to go into all the conspiracy theories, the gossip, etc. And I mean as many as we can. We are going to look into every piece of gossip out there in the public domain, and we are going to sift through it and see whether there is anything we can prove or whether we cannot prove any of it, in which case we are back to square one. So let's go. Where did the notion that Meghan Markle wore a moon bump and that they used a surrogate originate from? Was it a careless remark by a YouTuber or someone on Twitter which took off and snowballed and became what it is today? It is said that Harry and Meghan broke up before Tom Inskip's wedding, and although she was supposed to be Harry's +1, Harry actually advised Tom at some point that he will be coming single. However, at the last minute, Meghan arrived separately from Toronto. Others are saying they were going to arrive separately anyway, and she wasn't going to fly all the way to the UK from Canada and then on to Jamaica. Now, why am I even talking about this? Because one of the theories is that it was the weekend when Meghan told Harry that she was pregnant and set the ball rolling to their engagement and wedding. Now, I don't think so, and here is why. The wedding was in March 2017, and they got married in May 2018. That is more than a year later. So if she tried to snag him with a false pregnancy, then she had to have faked the miscarriage before she was about to show, which would have been May, June, July at the very latest. Plenty of time for Harry to get out of marrying her. But they announced their engagement on the 27th of November 2017. I personally think that is way too far off the mark. If she had a miscarriage in June or July, 4 or 5 months would have seen them recovering from the worst of it by November. And thus, if Harry was so traumatized and emotional or even feeling guilty about it, I'm sure the worst would have worn off by November 2017. There are actually people saying that Harry was utterly bored with Meghan by the time the Jamaican wedding of Inskip rolled around. There are people saying that Harry did not even bother to introduce Meghan around and was actually quite cold towards her, like he would not reciprocate when she put an arm around him, etc. Well, what I do think is, I think the Jamaican photographs, the ones we saw, did not show a couple in love. It shows a pissed off Meghan and an indifferent Harry. Now, I think the breakup came after the Jamaican wedding of Tom Inskip. I think Harry realized that weekend that Meghan Markle does not fit into his circle, his life, etc. So if that is how he felt, then what happened between March and November for this sudden engagement to happen? What happened in those 7 to 8 months must have been huge. Could she have faked a pregnancy to convince Harry to marry her? Sure. I mean, absolutely, why not? I believe Meghan is quite capable of doing something like that. I just do not think she played that card at the wedding, because she was seen chugging down vast amounts of champagne. I think if she did play that trick, she did so after that Jamaican wedding. I know that in 2016, Harry was seeing the model Sarah Ann Macklin. Actually, he was seeing her when he met Meghan, and I'm told that he was indeed rather conflicted between the two girls. But that at the end of the day, Sarah Ann made it easy for him as she told him it wouldn't work, and she was quite right. Sarah Ann Macklin is a health nut. From what she eats to daily exercise, and Harry's smoking, drinking, and other activities at the time was definitely not her kettle of fish. But before Sarah let the budding romance fizzle out, Harry bombarded her with texts in June 2016, exactly when he was supposed to meet Meghan Markle. I'm told Sarah Ann was happy when Harry was off to Africa for a month and her engagements kept her unavailable. Unfortunately, it gave Meghan Markle the opportunity to get her talons into him, but I digress. I'm not sure, and we shall never be sure whether Meghan used the pregnancy scam to convince Harry to stick with her, or whether she used other tricks like sex and drugs. What is known, but please note, although I'm saying it is known, I do not have proof as in paperwork or photographs, etc. But the source is one of my 90% correct sources, okay? Plus, I remember seeing and reading something about it. Anyway, I heard that Meghan started seeing a fertility specialist months before the wedding and even went on a special diet, etc., before the wedding. I'm also told from another source that Meghan retrieved her frozen eggs before the wedding. Someone else told me no, she retrieved it in August after the wedding, when she supposedly went to visit her mom. My opinion? I think before the wedding, because by August or during the month of August, Meghan or whoever carried little Archie must have been pregnant already. I am more inclined to believe that she retrieved those eggs in April when she visited her mom, in other words, before the wedding. Never mind. How do we even know Meghan had her eggs frozen? Can you remember where the story came from? Where did it originate from and from who or when? Well, I can't really. Well, again, now that I've gone back and looked into it, there are different stories. One is that Meghan Markle's sister, Samantha, told someone that Meghan had her eggs frozen after her divorce from Trevor and going on to a next season of the second or third one, I don't know, of Suits. Someone else said that Meghan Markle had her eggs removed and frozen before she had a hysterectomy at the age of 28 or 29. Allegedly, it was her father Thomas who told someone Meghan had her eggs frozen, had a hysterectomy, and retrieved her eggs in July 2018 after the wedding. Another Cora post states she retrieved her eggs in July 2017. Then, believe it or not, there is yet another story about Meghan Markle and her frozen eggs. According to this particular story, Meghan was under orders from the Queen herself to have her eggs frozen over fears that she and Harry would not be able to conceive before she turned 40. Now, my friends, it depends on where you turn to for information, whether it is Twitter, Quora, New Idea, Facebook, People, YouTube, or a million other places. Each has a variation of a similar story. So what is the actual story and where is the proof? Now, I found loads and loads of references to Meghan's supposed hysterectomy and even more about her frozen eggs. But how do I, someone who just reports on the royal family, distinguish between fact and fiction? The problem is that no one is prepared to tell the truth, the absolute truth, and nothing but the truth. Not Meghan herself, not her father, not her ex-husband or husbands or ex-boyfriends, etc. Now, what do I think? Well, I don't know anything about this, but looking at her, no middle, no hips, broad shoulders, hyper-thin legs, I do think, and I mean I think, she has a hormonal issue, which could have been caused by a hysterectomy 14 years ago. That is what I think, not what I know. So let's assume one of these many different versions of basically the same thing is indeed true. Let's assume for whatever reason Meghan Markle could not get pregnant naturally. Then why not have the IVF procedure done on herself? Is it because she does not have a womb anymore or because she was too vain? Well, that did not work too well, did it? She still looks like SpongeBob. Never mind. Someone told me Meghan just did not want to go through the pregnancy. She wanted the baby without giving up drinking and kinky sex. Okay. Now, I guess that is a possibility. I remember, I think it was a French ambassador talking about the noisy parties at Nottingham Cottage, and he did not specify that it stopped after she got pregnant. So moving on, let's assume, for whatever reason, Meghan convinced Harry that they have to go the surrogacy route. Look, she would never have suggested a straightforward adoption. Number one, because she's far too vain. She would never admit to not being able to do anything or failing at something, even if it is having children. And number two, an adopted child would straight up not get titles or be in the line of succession. So, having assumed that somehow she convinced Harry to go the surrogacy route, how did she do it? Did she pretend to be pregnant before, pretend to have a miscarriage and use that to convince him? Oh, my love, I can't go through this again. The pain, the disappointment. Let's find a strong woman who can birth our child. Just think, Harry, it will still be our child, Harry, our DNA. But you and I can still have fun, Harry. Have a drink, have a smoke, you know what, and roll around like two naked teenagers, Harry. Oh, but Harry, we must somehow keep it a secret. I don't think your 90-plus-year-old granny will understand, Harry. Oh, and your dad, Harry, you know, he's all about everything being natural, as nature intended and all those things. Is that what she did, or was there something else? I had a few people talking about designer babies, saying that Meghan said she wanted a dark-haired boy followed by a blonde or red-haired girl. A kid for each of them was the supposed joke, or then was it an order she placed? Anyway, that is not going to change anything, so let's move on. I don't know how to address the next thing, but no one wants to listen. No one wants to reply. No one wants to sort this out once and for all. So what do we do when we are being ignored? Just keep quiet? Is that what the palace expects? As creator, I kept quiet, covered up and protected so many people and will continue to do so, but only up to a point. I don't work for the royal family or Harry and Meghan, and although a fan of the idea of a monarchy and having loved the true royalty of the Queen and Prince Philip, Princess Margaret, etc., I owe King Charles, Harry and Meghan no loyalty, and neither do I owe anyone potentially keeping quiet about their alleged potential fraud of the British nation and the rest of the world any loyalty. Okay, so moving on. So where would Harry and Meghan go to have the IVF done? But wait, before we even get there, how or where did they find or secure a surrogate? They can't advertise. I guess they can ask the fertility specialist and or the clinic or at the rooms of the specialist. I don't exactly know how it works, but I'm guessing that a fertility clinic or a fertility doctor would have a portfolio on women who may very well be prepared to be a surrogate for others. But would a prince of the realm be willing to trust a stranger? Number one, to carry his kid, his blood, his DNA, and number two, that said stranger would keep their secret forever? No, I don't think so. Harry, as we know, is a little paranoid, even to the point where he often saw and still see paparazzi behind every tree. So could you see Harry trusting a stranger? Anyway, now Harry and Meghan had people they could turn to for advice. Their good friend and friend of Harry's mother, Diana, Elton John, and his husband, David Furnish, had 2 children via surrogate. Their first son, Zachary, was born in December 2010, and 3 years later they used the same surrogate to have their second son. Although their surrogate's identity was kept hidden, we know that Elton John and David Furnish made sure they had professional assistance via the Center for Surrogate Parenting in Chino, California. So their second son, Elijah, was born in January 2013. So did or would Harry and Meghan use a center in California? The truth is that it is not impossible. I have read of so many British couples who went outside of Britain to have the IVF surrogacy process started, some having their children even born outside of the United Kingdom, and others only having the transfer done outside the country, but the baby still born inside the United Kingdom, even if, say, the surrogate is a foreigner, they would pay for her to come into the United Kingdom. Oh my gosh. Now, I'm not going to read through all the cases for you, but it is actually easy to find because many of these fertility clinics have referrals on their website. So, I mean, it happens. It happens that couples go outside the United Kingdom for financial reasons, for privacy reasons, particularly if a couple makes use of donor eggs or donor gametes. There are many, many, many reasons, like there are clinics in Europe who have a very high success rate, good reputations, etc., etc. There are Americans who even go to Mexico for their surrogacy procedures or go to Brazil. I mean, different places for different reasons. But my question is, did Harry and Meghan use the clinic Elton John and David Furnish used? if they used IVF and surrogacy. I doubt they would use a clinic in California or an American surrogate while they were still back in the United Kingdom. The reason for that is that Meghan Markle has control issues. Even she admitted to it herself that she is a control freak. So even if an American surrogate was used for Archie, I think Meghan would have wanted her in the United Kingdom, close-ish. But again, I'm digressing. So they had Elton and David to give advice, but Elton and David were not the only couple who were close to the couple, or at least close to Harry, who had used IVF. Harry's close friend, Dave Henson, and his wife Hayley also used IVF to conceive their children. Although, let me add, Hayley carried their babies herself. For those of you who do not know who Dave and Hayley are, Dave Henson, MBE, is a British parasport athlete. He represented Britain at the Invictus Games and other championships. David stood on a hidden IED in Afghanistan in February 2011. As a result, Dave Henson had his right leg amputated above the knee and his left leg amputated through the knee. The military was decent and thoughtful. I'm actually told that the British medical facility do that as a rule, and I mean that is collecting the soldiers' sperm. Never mind, I think it was pretty thoughtful of them, and as a result, Dave and Hayley were able to have their very own babies. Harry and Dave grew close to the point where Dave and Hayley were invited to Harry and Meghan's wedding. Dave also became an Invictus trustee after being the Invictus British team captain. In 2017, Dave's wife and daughter Emily sat next to Harry and a camera caught the little 2-year-old stealing Harry's popcorn. So Harry and Meghan had friends much closer to home who could advise or refer them to the right people or doctors to work with. Now, the very reason why I mention this is not only because I am a great fan of Dave Henson's, but also because I was contacted by someone who claimed to have worked for Meghan and Harry, who said that Hayley Henson was actually Archie's surrogate. Now, I have to be honest, at the time I was searching for the lady in brown and I did not even think of looking among friends for anything like that. So it was a whole new avenue to explore, starting with the timeline, which was easy enough because both Dave and his wife had an online presence. So, I mean, what is easier? Just find out where the woman was at the time of the pregnancy and the birth, and then one could possibly judge whether it was possible at all for her to have been a surrogate without making a song or dance about it. So I took a quick look and again, but decided I'll do a thorough date check the next day or so. Big mistake, huge mistake. 2 days later, her profile was gone. And I mean Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, nowhere to be found. So it remains a mystery to this very day. One I could have debunked even if just for myself had she stayed on social media. Anyway, although this was an out of the blue yet a tip, which, I mean, it could make sense, it wasn't the only one. I was told that a single woman, likely from an Eastern European country, gave birth in a private clinic, that she was cajoled by her medical team to have the child by C-section, although it was 2 to 3 weeks before her due date, that there were some complications during the birth, and the baby was eventually transferred to the Portland to a private room where only this woman visited him, etc., etc. There were whispers, apparently, allegedly, that she was a surrogate for a very rich couple, and that the couple themselves were not going to come and see the baby because, one, they did not want the surrogacy to leak or have the surrogate compromised, and two, did not want to bond with the child unless or until he was out of the woods. Allegedly, at some point, this woman left the country without the child. I was also told that the real Archie only left the hospital on the 15th or 16th of May, and therefore the Archie introduced to the press and to the Queen and Prince Philip was not the real Archie. If not a newborn or real-born doll, then a borrowed baby. Remember, others are saying that the photo of Meghan and Harry introducing Archie to the Queen and Prince Philip was faked. And again, I did what I could to have the photograph tested. And the photo does appear to have been tweaked. It shows up on a scan. But the question is, was it just tweaked or a complete composite copy and paste job? I don't know for sure because I do not have the original, but what I have found was different pixel density on the different people in the photograph. And obviously the Queen wore the same clothes as she wore to the Windsor horse show, etc., etc. We spoke about this already. There had also been suggestions that Ashley Hale, Meghan's niece, was the surrogate for Archie or Lily or both. Another story I was told was that Lilibet's surrogate was a young university student or graduate who needed money to pay off her student loan. I was told that for a while she stayed with Meghan and Harry, or at least very close, because she was around most of the time, and that Meghan tried to manage her, telling her what to eat and drink, which was mostly Meghan's concoctions of nauseating smoothies and all kinds of seeds and leaves, etc. She allegedly also could not go anywhere alone. She had to be accompanied by a guard or Meghan herself. Allegedly, apparently, this young woman got fed up and fled to her parents' home in another state, where she also had the baby. And when it became time to hand the baby over, she refused, and there was a hearing in front of a judge. Well, actually, someone even sent me a link to a family court hearing in Colorado, or at least a partial transcript to it, which I read, and I agree that whoever that particular mommy was, she was treated very badly. But the transcript referred to baby B, defendant T or S or whatever, and there is or was absolutely no proof that it involved Harry and Meghan. Anyway, allegedly, according to this informant, the court did eventually give the baby to Harry and Meghan. Strangely, and I need to mention this because coincidentally I listened to one of Paula M's videos in the bathroom this morning, and whether it is coincidence or not, the story about Lily's blonde student surrogate also came from someone who allegedly, supposedly worked as a maid in the Tyler Perry mansion and remained in contact with staff who went on to work for Harry and Meghan because at the end of the day they all worked for the same agency. So I wonder whether it is the same person up to the same kind of mischief, Or is she indeed the only one telling the truth? After the Harry and Meghan mockumentary, there were even more stories coming out, namely that Meghan's niece, Ashley, was the surrogate and that one could see the bond between her and the children. Then I also received another tip regarding a photograph on Kat Deely's Instagram account, a photograph of her and Marcus Anderson taken in, I think, February 2021, in which Kat is holding a tiny baby and Marcus, the family dog, posted for Valentine's Day 2021. In the comments, Marcus refers to the dog and calls her Lily. Coincidence or shit stirring in advance? I don't know. Of course, this had people right back in La La Land, including myself, I must admit. I received email after email telling me that Lily was born in England and Marcus collected and delivered her to Harry and Meghan when she was old enough to fly safely. The story is or was that Lily's supposed birth date is actually the date on which Harry and Meghan took possession of her. This story was so detailed that I was even told that she was taken from the airport to the cottage hospital for a proper medical exam before being handed over to Harry and Meghan. My dear friends, if I was to make a video, one single video on all the stories and tips I received over the past 5 years, the video would likely be hours long, if not days. Obviously, some of the stories sound 100% credible or absolutely possible or even maybe probable. There are stories of a maid at Frogmore seeing the moon bump in a bathroom, about a staff member of Oprah's crew who saw Meghan adjusting the moon bump. But at the end of the day, what do we believe? Does it even matter what story or which version of what story we believe? The absolute, undisputable truth is that something is not right. Something is not kosher. Harry and Meghan's children were not held to the same standards and rules as any of the other royal children. Not even their paperwork, their birth certificates, christening records, or passports are in order. And that should be handled by the King, the Privy Council, and ultimately the British government, if it is not put right by, say, a certain deadline. You cannot and should not have two human beings, sixth and seventh, in line to the throne, who, number one, do not have a decent, proper signed birth certificate, whose birth has not been witnessed, as far as the public is concerned, by anyone, and number two, who are not living in or educated in England. Harry and Meghan will never tell the truth, unless eventually it will somehow benefit or pay them to do so. And that will likely also not happen before or until Harry gets his inheritance from his father. So, at the end of the day, as of right now, the Crown should demand answers to the real questions and paperwork, or then remove those children and their father from the line of succession immediately. Okay, guys and girls, it had been hard for me to get to all the comments in the comment section lately, but I'm going to go through the comments in this particular comment section with a fine-tooth comb, because I know I have stepped on toes in this video. If you have anything to say, but do not want to say it in public, then email me at bookwormonthecase@gmail.com. I have solicited help for the next 2 weeks to help me get through comments and email. Remember, Although I told stories in this video, which I was asked not to, I still have not betrayed anyone or doxed anyone, and I will never. I have been put through the ringer to tell or share who some of my informants are, but in 5 years I have never done so and never will. Unless you specifically ask me to use your name in a video, I shall not ever do so. Remember, a journalist, a cop, a priest, a doctor is never allowed to share or out their informants or their clients, for a lack of a better word. And as creator, I feel like I'm a bit of everything. So no, I feel myself honor bound never to share where I get my stories and information from. Okay, guys, now I also know I've left out a lot so far in this series of the Harkle Children, a complete review. And later next week, I'll do a part 4, the final in the series, in which I'll shortly address every random thing, or as many as I can remember, which I may have left out in these 3 videos. Okay, guys and girls, so that's it from me for today. Please take good care of yourselves until we meet again on the next one. Bye.